Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Or welcome to the channel. Today's video are on those creepy, scary, and sometimes just awful online dates. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. So it's 2011, and I'm newly divorced. I'm in my mid-20s and a single mother. I decided to try out some online dating sites. I start talking with this guy on one of the sites. We seem to have a lot in common, and he seems pretty normal. I decide to give him my phone number. We continue chatting via text and phone calls. Well, I suggest to go get some coffee and meet up. He states he doesn't drink coffee. Okay. I suggest we have drinks at the bar. He says he doesn't drink alcohol. Then he has a great idea. Let's go for a hike. I reluctantly agree. This was the first red flag. He wants to go to this place called Batstu in South Jersey, which is a historic village with old abandoned buildings, hiking trails, and the home of the New Jersey Devil. Great place for a first date. So I suggest we meet up at the main parking lot, and he has a better idea. He says let's meet at the train station nearby, and he'll drive us over, because he knows another entrance with better hiking trails. Second red flag. I, again, reluctantly agree, not wanting to be rude. So the day of the date comes, and for whatever dumb reason, I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. I think because I was embarrassed for using a dating site, and I knew somewhere in the back of my mind my friends would have tried to talk me out of it. So I pull up to the train station, and he's in a late 90s Bronco. Okay, not so bad. We can't all afford newer cars. He gets out, and he's actually the guy from the pictures. Okay, initial sigh of relief. We get in the car, and he starts to head to the secret hiking trail entrance. We have a nice conversation on the way there. All seems good. We get there, and as soon as we get out of the car, I go to grab my phone. He says, "No, just leave it here. I have mine." Red flag, waving in my fucking face. Again, being polite and not wanting to argue, I comply. I see the entrances, and one directs you towards a village and humanity, so I naturally suggest that one. He says no, and points to the other trail that goes God knows where. I again, being the good girl I am, say, okay. Right before we set off, a bit of rebellion sets in. You know, I should really have my phone with me. He starts to argue, and I'm like, no, I need it in case the babysitter calls about my son. He gives in and unlocks his car, and I grab my phone. We set off down the trail, side by side. We are talking, and everything seems okay. I start thinking, I was overreacting before. All is good. We get to the part of the trail where you can only go one by one. So I say, you go first, and I'll follow. He says, oh no, you go, so in case you trip or anything, I can grab you. I do that nervous giggle thing, and politely decline, saying how bad I am at following paths. He insists I go first, in a stern voice. Red flags with sirens. But I simply comply. The trail is getting narrower by the second, and the woods are getting darker because of the amount of trees and brush. We are no longer talking, and the only sounds are the crunching of our footsteps. Panic starts setting in. I look back at him, and he's just got a scowl on his face and a dead look in his eyes. I try to smile at him, but nothing. So I stop and say, let's turn back. I like it better when we could walk next to each other and talk, still being polite. He says he wants to keep going this way. So I say, no really, I want to go back the other way. And I start to do just that. As I walk past, he grabs my arm and blocks my path. I don't say anything and just casually grab my phone out of my pocket. He lets me go, saying, fucking whatever. And we walk back towards the car in silence. Me with my phone in my hand the whole time. Amazingly, I did have a signal. As we reach the clearing where the cars are parked, He looks at his watch and states he has to go now. He has somewhere he needs to be. We were only on the date for less than an hour, but okay, I'm not complaining. For whatever dumb reason, I get back in his car. We drive in almost silence the entire way back to my car, me with a death grip on my phone, and him looking miserable. He drops me off at my car and speeds away. I never heard from him again. Me being naive, I want to believe that there was no chemistry between us. But let's be honest, when I decided to fuck politeness and grab my phone that day, I spoiled his dastardly plans. This happened to me my freshman year of college. Tinder was new, and everyone at my university was on that app. I joined to see what all the fuss was about. Looking through profiles, I found a few guys that were really interesting. This one guy in particular caught my eye. We will call him Walter. I swipe right on Walter, and we match. I was excited and kind of giddy because he was super attractive. He messages me, and I get butterflies in my stomach. We message on the app for maybe an hour. Typical conversation is happening. I ask him what he does for a living, and he asked me what my major was. Harmless conversation. After a while, he asked me for my number so we could text instead of messaging on the app. I gave it to him. He seemed nice enough. We messaged back and forth for a few days. Lots of flirty conversations and plans to hang out finally occurred. By the fourth day of our conversation, he started calling me babe, which gave me mixed feelings. It was cute, but also a little weird. We didn't really know each other and had never met. I ignored it and continued on with the conversations. He started saying he wanted to be exclusive and he really wanted to see me in person. He was begging me at this point to come to his apartment to cuddle and watch movies with him and his dog. I told him that our first date needed to be in public and I would not be going to some stranger's apartment. He said I was overreacting and kept begging. I decided to ignore him for the rest of that night. The next day he apologized and said he understood why we needed to meet in public. So we made plans that weekend. The weekend came faster than I expected, and it was the day we were supposed to meet. Something just felt off, and I decided to back out. I texted him apologizing, saying my mom wasn't feeling well and needed me to come home to help her with some house chores. This made him annoyed, and he said, "Your mom is a big girl. If she needs you, she can just call you. Just come over, and you can leave whenever to go help her. I really want to see and kiss you." I told him no, that I would be staying with my mom that weekend, and that was that. I only lived about 30 minutes from home, so I actually do go home to see my mom that day. After what he said about my mom, I started ignoring him, and the text started rolling in. Text after text. "Babe, I'm sorry. Please come over. Babe, I miss you. Are you going to come over?" I planned on replying the next day that I was just busy with my mom. Then he started calling me. I had a total of 45 missed phone calls within a 2-hour period. He left voicemails saying that he was sorry and that he just missed me and wanted me to call him back. Similar voicemails continued almost the entire time I was home. My roommate texted me shortly after I finished dinner with my mom and asked if we could go out that night. I agreed and went back to my university dorm. Suddenly, the calls from Walter started increasing again. More texts, voicemails, and he started messaging me again on Tinder, asking me why I wasn't replying to him. I wasn't planning on replying until I got a message on Instagram that said, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming back to town tonight?" Getting this message really freaked me out. I replied to him and said, "Sorry, I've been busy with my mom. How did you know I was back in town?" He said, "Well, I checked your Tinder, of course." Tinder doesn't show exact locations, but has a within 1 mile message. This really freaked me out, and I messaged him back saying that he was being real creepy. He seriously had to be constantly refreshing my profile to see the distance change. The messages, calls, and voicemails continued. All were him apologizing for making me feel weird about him knowing where I was. He was just worried about me. We had been texting for less than a full week. I told my roommate about it, and so we decided to stay in for the night. The last straw for me was getting a message saying, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm outside your dorm with flowers and chocolate. Please forgive me." Oh hell no. I called the campus security and told them about this guy, but they never found anyone waiting outside my doors. I'm assuming he was in his car waiting for me to reply. I blocked him on all my socials, phone number, deleted Tinder, and haven't been back on since. I have seen him once, out and about in town, but he didn't recognize me, thankfully. Walter, if you read this, I'm glad we never met. Thanks for making me second guess every single guy I find attractive. So I'm not sure how many people know what FetLife is, but basically it's a fetish BDSM social media site. Facebook for those into kink, basically. It was used a lot for hookups, dating, but I was primarily into it to read some short erotica that were posted in forums sometimes, and finding more like-minded friends. But I did eventually branch out and meet some people off of there. Most of them were really cool, others not so much. They were just kind of boring. All in all, it was pretty okay. But after talking to this one guy and meeting up with him only once, I got really bad vibes and decided not to go any further. He just creeped me out for some reason. He was not ready to give up. Things went quiet for a while, and then 2 weeks later I kept getting harassing messages from blank accounts that I'm assuming were his, as they all had different variations of the same screen name, but words and letters arranged in different order. They were pretty harmless things like, "Why don't you love me? I thought we had something special. Hello? Please talk to me." Things of that nature. Annoying, but not dangerous. Well, one day he shows up to my work. Now I did work at a McDonald's, so it isn't that weird. And luckily I work in the back at the drive-thru. I only really saw him out of the corner of my eye when I went up to the front to grab cups, and I don't think he recognized me. I had shaved my head. It was trendy at the time, and when I met him I had a wig on. I never told him that I had shaved my head either. But as I was walking back, he called out my name. I rushed into the back and told my manager, and he got asked to leave. I didn't see or hear from him for 2 weeks afterwards. I get another message from a totally new unnamed account, but this one was much more sinister, and I knew it was him. It had to be. When he found out I was dating someone new, he got angry and threatened to expose me. I didn't work at McDonald's, so he didn't know where I worked anymore, but he knew where I went to school, the names of my mother and sister, and knew where they worked. He knows what shops I shop at, which friends I hang out with the most. He didn't know her name, but he gave me a really detailed description of how she looked, and he says that he knows where I live. Luckily, nothing happened, and I moved soon after, and never heard from him again. But needless to say, I was very spooked out, and it scared me away from online dating for good. I made a police report, so maybe that scared him away. This is a shorter story, but I think it fits here. I had just turned 18 at the time, and after getting out of a shitty high school romance, I figured I'd give Tinder a try. I didn't really plan on going on any dates. I just wanted to talk to new people, and then maybe someone would pique my interest. Let me set the scene. It's my senior ball. I'm all glammed up in my vintage dress and having a pretty good time, despite not having a date. The night was calming down, so I was sitting on my phone while a slow song played. I opened my Tinder to see if I had any new matches, and I did. A guy who was decently attractive and only a year older than me asked if I wanted to go on a date. I declined, but he seemed pretty insistent. To be fair, it wasn't a very harsh no because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. He then proceeds to spam me with different date ideas. I tried to ignore it and just go back to my friends. I checked my phone maybe 15 minutes later, and he had sent me pictures of an empty school parking lot that was maybe 2 blocks away from the reception hall I was at. He was asking me to meet him there and said that he would bring drinks and we could get drunk together. I told him no. He asked if Walmart would be better. I proceeded to block him and didn't pick up the app for a little while after. This was a while ago, so my memory of that night is a bit spotty, so I probably missed some details that would make this a little creepier. So this has never happened to me, and I hope it doesn't happen again. I really don't go out much, and I'm always working. I'm either teaching or I'm working on an ambulance. Whenever I do have free time, I'm either at home trying to get some rest or reading a book. My friends and I were talking about how hard it is to meet guys nowadays, and that we should really go out more often. My friend said that she had talked to a couple of guys online, but that she never met them in person, and it was nice to at least have conversation with someone. She tried convincing me to get a Tinder, which I really didn't think was a good idea, because I know that's primarily a hookup app, and I really wasn't looking for that, and wasn't going to waste my time. But after a few days, she finally convinced me and helped me make a profile. Overall, I didn't really like the app and found it odd that people just matched and then just met, but I guess that's just me. One day I was bored, so I went on it and matched with a guy named Cameron. He had about 4 pictures and a decent profile, saying that he wanted to meet some new people and that he enjoyed books and Netflix, which I also enjoy. He messaged me immediately saying that I was very beautiful and all the crap guys tell you. I thanked him and we started talking about the kind of books we liked. Side note, I'm into scary things and find psychological TV and books very interesting and know quite a bit about serial killers. So when he told me that he liked these things, I wasn't alarmed at all. After a few weeks of texting, he asked if I wanted to hang out. I wasn't really ready to meet him, I guess, and I was a bit hesitant and tried to avoid the question about hanging out. I would usually say I was busy at work or something. After 2 months, he finally convinced me to meet. He said we should go hiking, and I told him I was uncomfortable with that and would rather meet in a public place like Starbucks. He agreed and said we could meet at Starbucks. That day came when we met up. He was a bit odd, like controlling over small things, like when I asked for hot coffee and he said that I needed to try a cold coffee he liked and proceeded to order it without allowing me to answer. After about 2 hours, I just wanted to go home, so I said it's getting late and I should head off. He seemed upset and made an angry face and said it's still early, very loudly. I didn't like that at all, and I said I worked very early. He looked around for a while, like he was trying to control himself from either saying or doing something. I got up and said goodnight and walked out. When I got home, I unmatched him and blocked his number. Fast forward to about 3 days ago. I see on the news about this guy who had murdered a girl at a local hiking mountain. I completely froze when I saw the guy. It was the same guy I got coffee with. I just can't believe how close I came to a murderer. I pass by that Starbucks every morning, and it gives me chills to think he wanted to most likely kill me.